The HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast is fueled by Eukanuba. If you want to get the most of your dog in your training sessions, you need nutrition that holds nothing back. Eukanuba's new premium performance lineup is built with the nutrients dogs need to help unleash their max potential. That starts with providing energy that matches their efforts, supporting optimal nutrient delivery, and supporting post-exercise recovery. Check out the new Eukanuba premium performance lineup and find your dog's fuel at eukanubasportingdogs.com. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. The HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast is powered by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. CGA is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource. They've got over 160 instructional videos that includes everything you need to take your 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com to sign up for the free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. Gunner kennels are engineered for your dog, designed for travel, and built for your peace of mind. The G1 kennel has set a new industry standard and put Gunner in a category all its own. They were started to protect your pet, and it continues to be at the center of everything that they do. Gunner's dedicated to building the best and safest pet travel crate on the market because man's best friend deserves man's best kennel. Check out their G1 series of kennels and accessories at gunner.com. All right, welcome back. Lesson 8 of our module number 4 on the hunt in the Foundations of Waterfowl Hunting course brought to you by HP Outdoors. This lesson is going to focus on setting the decoy spread. Man, this is one that gets a ton of questions and a ton of different thoughts and theories and techniques on how to do this. But in general, we want to focus on what kind of birds and what sort of numbers are working the area that you're hunting and use an appropriate amount of decoys for the amount of birds that are in your area. General rule of thumb here, if you're going to be hunting traffic birds in that area, you're probably going to want a larger spread to try to pull some of those birds off of the route that they're intending to go and get them to come land on your spread. If you're on the X, you certainly could use much less decoys most of the times. And, if you're really on the X, there could probably be times that you wouldn't even need to use decoys to kill a bird. Typically, you want to use the decoys to position the birds into your kill hole so that you can get a maximum amount of effectiveness on birds that finish. So the decoys can provide different as a tool for different means, depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think probably in our younger years we really overthought laying out the decoy spread, but when it comes down to it, there's a few patterns that you use or can use, or, you hear about the U or the J hook or the cat paw, or one of Josh's favorite is the dump spread. Just drop it out there and stand them up and roll with it. One thing that we do try to do, if it's a longer field and where they want to be, we'll kind of use a line of decoys as a stop. And that's about as intense as I get with it anymore. You know what way they should be coming from, and you don't want them to land behind you. So if they're out front, you can do some extra calling to get, have them slide up to you. But you really don't, if you're in layout blinds, you don't want them landing behind you, because then everyone would have to try and swing. A lot of issues can come up with that, and it's just not safe. So if you're in an A-frame, a little bit of a different deal. Guys can just turn around, stand up, and shoot. But we'll use a J hook to try and give them a landing zone. Besides that, dump spread, lay it out, give them a big enough hole. If you have 20 birds, that they're coming in 10 to 20 birds deep, you don't need a huge landing zone. So if you have 1,000 birds, depending where you're at, if you're in a central flyway, you might want it spread out just a little bit more, but that's here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this depends on where you're hunting and, how many birds you expect to finish and stuff. But a couple of things that I like to typically do is I like to set a decoy somewhere or a line of decoys at the outer edge of what I'm comfortable shooting at. So I have a visual representation of, okay, that's what 40 yards look like in the field, or that's what 30 yards looks like down the long line, or whatever the case might be, right? That's sort of just visual marker. Another thing that I like to do is, when you're setting your spread, is adding motion into that spread. And to do that effectively, some of the things you want to consider is, where might I want to put that motion? So as an example, if you're hunting diver ducks on long lines, you might want to put your spinning decoys at the far end or the head of those lines to simulate birds flying up the line to try to jump in front of these other birds to get to the food source, right? That's an aggressive move for them to go all the way up in front of these other ducks to get to the prime food that's not been eaten already by the ducks back in the line. So you may want to do that. Or if you have a jerk rig, you might want to have it more in your landing hole, because you're trying to show birds as they're circling. That's the motion of that group of birds just landed in the hole. And that splash that they're seeing is those birds setting down into that hole, kind of deal. If you've got more floating ducks or more bubblers and that kind of stuff, you might want to have those more in the peripheral of your spread to create motion and ripple within the spread. But maybe that's not where you want them to focus. You want them to just focus in that open pocket that is created by your decoys, that looks alive with all this motion within it, right? So think about what your purpose is with the motion. I mean, if you're hunting early season teal, they might just dive bomb your spinners. If they're doing that, you probably ought to have them in an area where you can get a good kill shot on those birds. So knowing how you anticipate the ducks to react to the motion that you're adding into the spread will be very helpful in your means to deploy it so that you can have the most success possible based on how they reacted to that spread. So setting the decoy spread is not an exact science, but there are some general principles that you want to follow, I think, as you're doing that. We've had several episodes in the past about how to set a silhouette spread effectively. As an example, we've talked, as Dan mentioned with Sean Stahl, about the dump spread and all of these other things. So we've got a lot of decoy setting tips in the archives of our podcast. If you go to the website and check those out, you can get much more detail on how to set these spreads for the different scenarios that you might be hunting out there.
Yeah, I was going to mention you can listen to the Field and Clay Hudnall episode about using goose decoys for bringing in ducks. So
correct.
They lay out a huge floating goose spread for duck hunting, and they crush. So,
yep, 100%. So all that's good stuff to take in when you're considering your decoy spread and how you want to go at it. So again, not an exact science. There's no one shoe fits all. It's trial and error. It's learning your area and seeing what works. So we'll move on. Lesson 9, we're going to hit real quick, talking about how to call to ducks. That's going to do it for this episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes, check out some of our past episodes, and while you're there, leave us a 5-star rating and review. It's the best way for like-minded hunters just like you to find our show. Check us out on social media. Check us out over at hpoutdoors.com and anywhere you can find quality podcast content. That's going to do it for this week. Till next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.